Attention please. This upload is only for educational purpose. No intention to infringe copyrights. Learning English with subtitles. GPITRAL. GPITRAL. Definitely a must-see. Follow us.
The molestation charge against DeSalvo was eventually dropped, and he escaped a lengthy prison sentence.
It turned out that the parents were reluctant to have the children go through it. The Army was going to phase them out of the area, transfer them. So everybody ended up happy.
DeSalvo was free to return to the familiar streets of Boston. Almost immediately, he combined a series of bizarre sexual offenses with burglary.
As the measuring man, he went around to apartments, knocked on doors, told women that he represented some new advertising agency and that he had spotted them.
And out would come the tape, and he would start measuring. And a lot of them would stand there and be measured. Some of them would just stand there until they realized that it was a charade and he was gone.
He was never charged with sexual assault, but Albert DeSalvo was sentenced to 18 months in prison for burglary. It was after this incarceration that he committed the crimes that would make him infamous.
When he came out of prison from the measuring man, he became the strangler.
This woman was murdered, strangled out in the back bay. Within the next week or two, 2 more women were murdered, and then a 4th. And they were strangled. Each one was strangled. People were frightened. They simply were. They were terrified.
With an insatiable sexual appetite to feed, simply measuring women for cheap thrills was no longer enough. DeSalvo had to kill.
Hello, man. I'm the maintenance man. Here to fix your plumbing?
DeSalvo conned his way into unsuspecting women's apartments.
These poor ladies, they didn't have a chance. He was that confident.
Each theme was the same. To get the woman partially unconscious, then to kill her, and then to leave her positioned in a way that would be quite shocking. The women had foreign objects such as a bottle or something inserted in their vaginas.
His purpose was to have access to the woman's body. He would play with it, kiss it, study it. He'd look for something to wrap around their neck so that if they started to come to, he could grab it. Then he'd pull too hard and he'd kill them.
DeSalvo eventually went on to brutally rape and murder 13 women. Our search for the spirit of Albert DeSalvo leads us away from New Jersey and into the heart of Boston. I had arranged to meet up with Bill McDonough, a messenger boy in downtown Boston during the time of the murders. Bill was going to show us a location important to our investigation, the place where the Boston Strangler committed his first murder.
On the left is 77 Gainsborough Road. And this was the house of Anna Slessors, who was the first victim of the Boston Strangler.
Do you get any sense of what went on here, Bobby, or how Albert may have approached the apartment?
Yeah, I think prior to this, he's thought about killing before. Just never went that far. He was just kind of waiting for an opportunity. I see him walking these streets, and this was such an impulsive thing. You know, he was just, like I say, it's just an excitement and a giddiness.
So when you say that, do you mean that when he went into this building, murder was what was on his mind?
He was thinking this was going to be it, and he was ramping himself up because I'm starting to feel an exhilaration. The easiest way that he found that he could kill her was by choking her. I think that was almost a last-minute thought. Making his way across the street this way, and he's constantly looking back at the door. It's weird because it's almost like I feel like when I'm looking back, like he almost doesn't believe she's dead. I mean, he knew she was dead, but when I get the feeling like I'm looking back to make sure that she's not watching me out the window, you know, like she's watching where I'm going. And then he comes over here and he's looking up and he's, you know, then I feel like I want to run. It's just euphoric and it's hurried and it's exhilarating.
The Boston Strangler's horrific murder spree had led us to the scene of his most horrendous killing. But what would we discover when we investigated behind these four walls?
So you enjoyed raping these women?
With what we learned from Bill earlier, it seems the only way we're going to have the conversation we're after is to go back to the scene of his crime.
How you died?
Our investigation into Albert DeSalvo had revealed that in life he was more than willing to tell the world about his gruesome crimes. But would he be so open and detailed in death? After being imprisoned on multiple rape charges, DeSalvo, already facing many years behind bars, finally confessed to being the Boston Strangler.
He wanted to tell his story, and that was part of the deal he was trying to work out, that some big magazine or news company would pay him.
In jail, DeSalvo was an arrogant man who thought highly of himself and would often anger the other inmates. In the end, this arrogance would be his downfall.
He was irritating with other prisoners, and he was stabbed to death in prison, in his cell. It's very difficult to explain, isn't it, in the dead of night?
As our journey into the dark and sinister world of the Boston Strangler came to an end, we were concluding the investigation at the apartment that was the scene of his most horrific murder. Would the spirit of DeSalvo finally make an appearance? We were about to find out.
With the emotion that still exists in this place because of the gruesome happenings, could they bring Albert DeSalvo forward?
Whenever you have an event like this brings about so much emotion, especially from both parties, victim and predator, then yeah, I mean, it's a really likely place that Albert could make himself known tonight.
Let's go and take a look.
I had invited along members of the Massachusetts Paranormal Crossroads.
This was the apartment block where Patricia Bissett was murdered by the Boston Strangler. We're more than likely sitting in the room where she lost her life.
Unfortunately, we have you guys here to kind of help us here. In fact, we're going to use something a bit different. These guys have a very unique tool that I can't wait to see how it works.
There's a number of these devices out there that investigators use, and the idea behind them is that they do random sweeps of radio waves, and that spirits are able to use those words that are out there, pull them together to form sentences.
And maybe I can work with that, and we can get some of the answers we're looking for from, hopefully, Albert DeSalvo himself. So I guess one of the first things we're trying to ask is, can the spirit tell us, are you here? Can you tell us what your name is? First, can you just tell us that you're here? Yes. I took that as a yes. I don't think that's stretching it. Does everybody agree? Yeah. And she's so strong right here. So, speaking to the female energy that's in here, are you still here?
Yes.
I heard yes.
Is there a male trying to get in contact with us?
No. So maybe the male's coming through strong, even though I'm feeling the female. Maybe I'm just feeling her because she's right here. All other spirits that are trying to use this box to communicate, please stop. We're only interested in Albert DeSalvo and Patricia, if she's here. So Patricia, are you still in the room? Okay. Wow. What do you think of being in the same room with Albert DeSalvo?
Death, yeah.
Conflict of interest.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That would totally make sense, wouldn't it? If you're on the other side with your killer, it's a conflict of interest. Patricia, say hi to us. Can you just say hi or hello if you're in the room with us? So then, Patricia, we very much want to talk to you. Can you tell us how you died? Albert DeSalvo. You have to say at least hi or hello so that we know that you're even here.
Hi.
I heard
Did you hear it? Oh, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry. I didn't even hear it.
Yeah, I heard
Really?
hi, yeah.
I was there.
Wow.
Albert, did you kill any of the women that were victims of the Boston Strangler?
Of course. Being so obsessed with sex Is that what drove you to murder Albert?
Money.
And making money?
Well, at the end, I mean, he wanted to sell his story.
So you enjoyed raping these women, Al? Yeah.
Your legacy is a footnote in history as a creep.
It was years ago. Things don't change, Albert. Your name today is just as disgusting as it was back then. Nobody looks at you like a hero. Was prison life worth all of the pain and fear that you caused?
Albert, how were you murdered?
I heard stab.
Stabbed? You heard?
Albert, we didn't hear that clearly. How were you murdered?
Stabbed, I heard it.
Albert, were you or were you not the Boston Strangler?
It's not like that. We know that you're a murderer, we know that you're a pervert, and we think that you are the Boston Strangler. Really? Really? Think about it. Saying goodbye?
Yeah.
Just before I turn this off, he says,
Saying goodbye.
Saying goodbye.
It's very hard to be conclusive about the Franks box because those people who use it professionally aren't always convinced, but it was certainly pretty interesting. But as we went to turn it off, Bobby and one other member of the group thought that they heard different things. I think Bobby thought he heard think about it. One of the other guys heard goodbye. I suppose that would be a neat way to end it. I'm not entirely sure that either of those was correct, but it was certainly something new, something interesting. Did it add all that much? Not really sure.